namiddag and bonjour, and c'est une belle ville, Bruxelles, absolument. Permettez-moi de continuer ce discours en anglais. Merci. C'était très belle musique, n'est-ce pas? Absolument impressive. Well, all right, we're targeting 2061, so let's get on with it. We're not talking, some people talk about the next 50 years as a time in which you can reinvent capitalism, for example, reinvent democracy, reinvent this or that. But when you get right down to it, what the main thing we're talking about is reinventing civilization. Now, in the year 2061, a very famous thing is going to happen, and that is the return of Halleys Comet. I have a great affection for you Europeans. For the last time Halleys Comet came by, I had just published my doctoral dissertation about comets and published a novel about colonizing Halleys Comet. And very conveniently, the Giotto spacecraft from Europe, Europe's first great space venture, went by and took pictures, and I was very pleased by the results. Thank you very much. But the next arrival of Halleys Comet is going to view an altered humanity and an altered human civilization. And the ultimate reinvention is, of course, going to be us. We started out as masters of creation, and 500,000 years ago, we had stone tools, we had fire, we had speech. We were the masters of everything, including physically incredibly powerful compared to other animals in many, many ways. So as a result, there was long periods of staticness, but then again, we started building spaceships on Earth. Capsules made out of raw material that would enable it to be winter outside and yet perfectly acceptable temperatures inside. We would go out into the fields and weed and get rid of plants we didn't like and nurture plants we did like gods. And sometimes we started thinking of ourselves as gods. We had these metal implements with which men routinely would go and take other men's women and wheat and pass on those genes. 8% of the Chinese populace today is descended from Genghis Khan, they now calculate, just from looking at the Y chromosomes. So this process got reinforced again and again, and it helped to reinforce feudalism and some of the more nasty traits that keep coming back to hijack our civilization. A civilization that may go amazing places. But the question that we ultimately face is civilization a progression? Now, there is every reason to believe that civilization can go someplace that we cannot. Look to your left. This is the story of the Tower of Babel. Now think about this from Scripture. First, at that point in time, God was capable of great anger. He would drop volcanic fire all over a city and kill everybody. He would drop water all over the planet and kill everybody. What was his response to this hubristic attempt to reach heaven? No anger at all. Read it, actually. It is just a statement of simple fact. If they work together, no purpose is beyond them. They will be like me. Nothing that they attempt is beyond them. Therefore, he thwarted us by making sure we could not collaborate, by dividing us up among languages. It's a different approach to that, Scripture, and something you should use in arguing with your religious friends, because it implies that we are unlimited. And certainly, we're trying again. Language is no longer a problem, is it? You have things in your pocket. No. We've reconverged now, and what will we build this time? Now, on the right-hand side, you see the real story. That was Scripture, that was mythology, but the real story was 250,000 years during which we were human, but chipped the same flint flakes from the same cores in exactly the same way for 200,000 years. Our civilization was static until one day, about 45,000 years ago, something new happened. We suddenly were painting on walls. We were burying our dead with flowers. We were using bone sewing needles to sew garments. and bone fishing hooks and fishing nets and building these huts, and suddenly a new renaissance, a sudden advance in human civilization. And here's the thing to remember about these. There is a mix of yin and yang every time we do this, because one victim of this advance was genocide. One victim was our Neanderthal cousins. They survived next to us until we had this renaissance. It isn't always clean. Now, we see something here that I would like to use as a metaphor. I stuck this slide in because I was inspired by Peter Cochrane and by Patty Ashdown, because it's the metaphor of what our civilization is doing. Throughout human history, almost every human civilization was shaped like a pyramid, with a few at the top lording it over those below. Those who got those metal implements and took other men's women and wheat, they passed on the genes that make us fascinated by fantasies and nostalgia and feudalism. Why? Why? Because we're all descended from the harems of those guys who managed that trick. And this is very, very, very self-reinforcing. You go across 6,000 years and find me the exceptions. There is only one real exception, and that is the civilization that's shaped like a diamond, in which the well-off outnumber the poor. Not only that, but there's churn within the diamond. The sons and daughters of the poor aren't necessarily going to be poor. They may be the next competitors with the rich. And the whole thing rises. That's our dream. That goes beyond flags, because that, even if Patty Ashdown is right and Pax Americana is on its way out, the thing that we have to be loyal to is something called the positive sum game. If you don't know what that means, take those 3 words home with you and study them, because they are the most important words you'll come away with today. The positive sum game is one in which everybody wins, even if someone gets rich and others don't. Everybody wins. The notion that we can get beyond zero-sum games, that is the core of our enlightenment, and that is what has to be defended. Now, how do we do that? We do it with something called anticipation, using these lamps upon the brow. That's a mistranslation. It was mistranslated into horns upon the brow, which is why Michelangelo put horns, with great respect, on Moses. But in fact, it's lamps upon the brow. These are the prefrontal lobes. These are the nubs above the eye that allow us to project what Einstein called the Gedanken experiment, the thought experiment. What will happen if I spread this rumor? What will happen if I broach this idea to my boss? What will happen if I say this at the bar tonight? What will happen if I try to run this yellow light? It's examining the possible consequences of our actions by making little plays in our heads. And the result can be, at best, mistakes to avoid. You women have no idea how many times a day men do Gedanken experiments, and the answer is no. No, no, no. The point is that at worst, what we do is we weave delusions. And these delusions help to form our politics, and they help to form the reason why human beings, even if we get these new cyborg attachments, are not going to be trustworthy as super beings. Because we'll become better and better at this. I earn my living. I used to be a scientist. I now earn my living creating wonderful delusions out of black squiggles. And you are so well trained that you open up the book, preferably after buying it, and you scan these black squiggles and you decrypt them into star-spanning explosions, deep human insights. You do that. You do that. It is the great magic. And it is why individual human beings are untrustworthy. It's the common effort of civilization that improves. Yes, but is it improving because of these new technologies? Now, the cyber transcendentalists like Clay Shirky, they believe that what's going to happen is all we need is more connection, more Facebook, more ways of interacting with each other, more access to more information, and we will naturally negotiate with each other and come up with solutions to problems. And just like the marketplace defeats bad products, but raises up good ones, and democracy supposedly defeats bad policies and raises up good ones, and science defeats bad theories and raises up good ones. Competition is the libertarians have this much right. Competition is the great creative force of the universe. And then they follow Ayn Rand down roads of... But that much they have right. But is this happening? Just because we can all Google all of a sudden, just because we can all express opinion, all the opinions we want. You've been on websites, you've been on blogs where somebody says something absurd and somebody else demolishes it with proof. Does the bad thing go away? Ever? No, it never goes away. Instead, Nicholas Carr and some of the others, the cyber grouches, are saying it's just making us scream at each other more. There's no way to make the shit go away. So there's no way to ensure to keep the fraction of pearls rising up through the manure pile. This is what the dance of Shiva is supposedly about. It's about crushing the bad stuff, not in an oppressive 1984 Big Brother way, but crushing bad ideas simply because over the course of time, they've been proved wrong. And it's not happening on the internet now. Instead, the manure pile is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. Now, there are business opportunities in here, ways to help improve our ability to use the prefrontal lobes for prediction, for analysis, for getting a generalized civilization-wide consensus that maybe these particular things, it's time to put them away, because that'll make room for new things, new creativity. And there must be business opportunities to enhance these capabilities, because our older four arenas of the Enlightenment, markets, democracy, science, and law courts, have all spent a long time developing these techniques. Now, there's a lot at stake here. We've been listening with radio telescopes for a long time, and we've seen no signs of extraterrestrial life. This is the fundamental. And Drake's equation goes through all the possibilities. Is it possible that the number of life-giving planets is rarer than we think? Is it possible that it's rare for life to show up on these planets? That might be the bottleneck. Is it possible that it's rare for intelligence to emerge, or for technological intelligence that we could detect? Working our way through all of these things, you find out that there are possible filters in our past, but also possible filters in our present and our future. We thought that it was an automatic thing that there would be nuclear war. We managed to prove that human beings are sensible, at least to be capable to avoid this failure mode. But what about other failure modes, such as spreading diseases or turning our planet into something as fertile as the surface of Mars? These are all possible failure modes, and one possible failure mode is that we may become wonderful cosmic space muffins inside the internet, that we'll find the internet and our games so attractive that we'll just disappear into them. And that could be what has happened to everybody else out there. That could be why the cosmos seems so silent. I'm racing through in 1 minute a summary of a topic that we could spend a conference a week long discussing all the possibilities. But where is everybody? Is the filter behind us, or is the filter in front of us? A lot may be riding on this issue, because it may be more than just your survival, your children's survival, the survival of your civilization that's at stake. What if we're smarter than average? That happens to be one of my favorite theories. What if we're smarter than average of intelligent life? What if the galaxy is waiting for us to get out there? What if we're going to get out there and be the postmen and the deliverers and the people who say, no, don't do that. That'll ruin your planet. We almost did it to ourselves. What a mission for us. What if that's what's riding on our success? What a burden. The whole fate of the whole darn galaxy? Are we lonely? Well, let's look out there for aliens, and maybe we won't find aliens, but we'll make them. We'll make them artificially, artificial intelligence. And you know what? There's also possibilities I've talked about in some of my novels. The possibility of altering and uplifting other creatures, to give them that little boost so that they could be co-members of our civilization. And a lot of yin and yang there. If we could have dolphin members of our culture, obviously it would add to our wisdom, tremendously to our breadth of wisdom. And yet, remember, both the left and the right would come in against such a project. Why? Because the end result is wonderful, but there would be 20 or 30 generations of pain along the way. Think about it. Go home with this thought. Would you be willing to carry the guilt of 20 or 30 generations of pain on dolphin experimental subjects in order to win, at the end, such a magnificent civilization that had them as fellow members? Not everything is simple in morality. And then there's our kids, which are going to be experimented on. Sorry, like it or not, it's going to happen. The question is, will we be able to do it as a civilization, wiser than individuals will be, because some individual parents are going to be real dopes. So is it ordained? There's a lot of discussion of the singularity. I don't have time to go into it, but the notion is that Moore's law will give us enough computing power that we'll be able to match the number of synapses in a human brain. Only some recent science has indicated that inside the neurons there may be computation taking place, in which case we're more spectacular than we thought and it may take the curve longer. But will we make HAL 9000? And if we make HAL 9000, will that result in a singularity that takes us along, that we get augmented, that we get to participate in being part of this singularity? Or will it be the one that leaves us behind, either by stomping us flat? That's silly. It certainly won't happen from a military program. They obey orders. What terrifies me is that the emergent artificial intelligence program may come out of Wall Street stock market trading programs. Now those are predatory. I don't think I'd care for that. So 50 years from now, Halleys Comet comes. We'll have the Earth in the palm of our hand. The question is, will we wind up someplace like Soylent Green? Because there's a substantial chance you are the ones who have it in your power to help to make it either that or to make science a fundamental part of becoming co-creators with God and creating things that will be wonders that our grandchildren will be capable of bringing to the world. The question, again, comes down to this. An awful lot is riding on us. Thanks a lot.